Non-metal music I like. I will start with rock music before I get to the stuff that will really surprise you. Considering that metal is ultimately an offshoot of rock, it's no surprise that I like some rock music, especially since some of it bleeds into metal a bit, and there are many cases that are a gray area, where it is ultimately a matter of opinion whether it's rock or metal or both. I've mentioned proto-metal bands before, like Dust, or Sir Lord Baltimore. I like this sound quite a bit. And even some more well-known bands, like Led Zeppelin, The Who, and Queen, fall under this category. I like all of these bands, especially Queen, who were quite possibly the first band I really got into when I was a kid. Even though some Queen is rather heavy, and Stone Cold Crazy was instrumental in forming speed and thrash metal, I think it's safe to say most consider Queen to be a rock band rather than a metal band. I really love their 70s material. I don't care for 80s Queen very much, but pretty much everything from the 70s is great. From Bohemian Rhapsody to We Are the Champions to Fat Bottomed Girls, all their tracks are iconic rock anthems. They have such an epic feel to them. And even at the end in the 90s with The Show Must Go On, which was ultimately their final tune, they went out with a banger. Some other classic rock bands I like include The Doors, who had some mind-bending material, especially for the 1960s, Lynyrd Skynyrd, with their simple yet lively southern rock, and Boston, who were just on another level with their debut. More Than a Feeling is a candidate for best rock song of all time, and that whole record is fantastic. I don't usually go out of my way to listen to classic rock, since these are overplayed on the radio, and I've been listening to all of them since I was a kid. But I have some respect for them, and I'm happy to hear them on road trips or in stores, since it still beats most other music that gets airplay. Another gray area is grunge. While Soundgarden and Alice in Chains are definitely somewhat metal, something like Nirvana is a bit more debatable. If Queen was my childhood introduction to music, Nirvana was my musical introduction to my teenage years. Nevermind is a very important rock record. And while I do tend to view it a bit more cynically now, and I do find it a bit difficult to enjoy it on the same level that I did when I was a teenager, it still speaks to a jaded and apathetic mood that we all go through, and the tracks are all solid. There was a time where I was obsessed with Smells Like Teen Spirit. And it's a fitting name. Nirvana is Teen Angst, the band. It'll always have a place in my heart, even if I think there is much more soul in Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. I'll be honest, I never really got into punk, but I quite like the Distillers. If I had to describe their sound, it's like Joan Jett meets Nirvana. So it's just as much grunge as it is punk. Coral Fang is great. It has a very early 2000s sound, so it wouldn't be too out of place on an emo playlist. Speaking of emo, I kind of like some emo music, believe it or not. I can dig some Coheed and Cambria, who funny enough blend emo with prog metal. But again, I think they are a band where the metal elements are diluted enough that people just consider them to be a rock band. If I'm feeling really nostalgic for the early 2000s, I'll throw on some AFI or Fall Out Boy, but that's a rare occasion. It's funny because I hated emo when it was popular, and I never even really actively listened to it. But now that time has passed, I find myself nostalgic for an emo phase I never even had. It's interesting how time changes perception. Back when I was younger, I didn't have the label for emo, so the music I heard was just music. While I never was into emo, I was still exposed to plenty of it through video games and my peers. I was just oblivious to it, since it was new at the time, and I didn't have a name for it, like other musical styles. Now, emo is instantly recognizable and dated, so hearing it brings me back to that era. I also really like Tiger Army. They are considered psychobilly, which is a mix of rockabilly and punk rock. However, I think Tiger Army is a bit different than most psychobilly. They are far more emo than punk. I especially like their album Retro Future, which is fairly recent in their discography, from 2019, but their early 2000s stuff is good too. That iconic retro rockabilly sound of the 1950s really clashes with the emo vibes of the aughts in a good way, and gives it a truly timeless quality, since it sounds like nothing else.
The things that it says in my dreams.
Since I'm talking about grunge and emo, I'll bring up the elephant in the room, Incelcore, which arguably takes influence from both. Negative XP is another important musical moment, I think. It is the anti-Nirvana in a strange sort of way, almost like becoming disillusioned with disillusionment itself. Whereas Nirvana has a whatever attitude that nothing really matters, Negative XP is yearning for an escape from this nihilistic worldview. That if you take the nothing matters approach to life to its logical conclusion, you end up rot-maxing in your room, with no purpose to your life besides playing video games. And hey, I love video games, but I think many can relate to the feeling of replaying a video game from your childhood that you love, as an adult, and having zero fun whatsoever. Just sitting there, miserable, wondering why you aren't enjoying it the same way that you did before. That feeling sums up Incelcore as music. I know that the genre tends to be viewed as a stupid meme at best, or vile hateful music at worst, but I do think there are some good gems amongst all the 4chan Fed posting. Jezebel Gebergably, who apparently is a girl by the way, and Cyborg 9K are some standouts of the genre, genuinely worth listening to. Songs like Loser and Postmodern Dreams are truly special. Also, unfortunately, YouTube took them down last I checked, but there were also some really good fan-made music videos for Negative XP's tracks. And sure, some were just the aforementioned 4chan Fed posting, but others were genuinely artistic. There was one Negative XP track called Thotiana, which is a cover of a rap song, and he sings these really vulgar rap lyrics over an instrumental that sounds like it should accompany a slow dance from the 1950s.
Bust down Tatiana, bust down Tatiana. Bust down Tatiana, bust down Tatiana.
The juxtaposition is funny in itself, but to hammer the point home even harder, the fan video was an edit of a 1980s music video with Jennifer Connelly. That fan video is a work of art. It evokes something that's hard to put into words, but says a lot.
Make that shit clap, she threw it back, so I had to double back on the gang.
There is a huge discrepancy between the way 1950s wholesome ballad tracks describe women versus how modern rap music does. And Negative XP covers both of these styles of music, which is interesting.
I love my little Canada girl every day of the year. 'Cause every time I wake up in the morning, I got murder on my mind.
Yes, we do indeed live in a society.
Smacking high on them drugs, try to kill myself 2 times wasn't enough.
Music videos are a dying art, so it's interesting to see fans make edits that enhance a tune. Next up, pop. I hate pop music generally, but I will say hyperpop is interesting, taking pop to its limits. 100 gecs auto-tunes the vocals to absurd degrees, and distorts the instrumentation to the point it sounds like you blew your speakers. I thought they were awful at first, so bad it's good in music form, but I eventually started listening to them unironically. They are refreshing. They play almost every style of music and do it in the most obnoxious way possible. Great music to play for your friends who listen to all kinds of music. I can definitely see why people hate them, but they are easily the most unique thing in music from the last few years. Poppy is also great, sometimes also fuses in metal, and is pretty eclectic with musical influences. But if you want me to praise a genuine pop song that's not metal at all, and not some dumb meme song either, I'll go with Personal Hell by Kim Petras. Legit good pop song. Something I would be shocked to hear myself say, even just a couple years ago. Jazz. Now I'm sure this isn't real jazz, and my picks for non-metal music are likely all super basic, but I'm going with Frank Sinatra.
That's life. That's life. That's what all the people say.
Really starting to grow on me. That's Life, My Way, Over and Over, all bangers.
Over and over, I keep going over the world we knew.
Suave and swingin', casual yet triumphant. Good stuff. I also enjoy Richard Cheese. If you are unfamiliar, he covers pop, rap, and rock tracks, but in a jazzy way, often swing or lounge music. It is especially hilarious hearing Frank Sinatra-esque covers of nu metal like Korn and Slipknot.
Something takes a part of me. Bum bum ba dim bum ba dim ba dim. People equal shit. People equal shit. Come on.
Not only is it genuinely funny, but it also gives you new perspective on these tracks, as the context of the genre makes the lyrics hit different.
But I'm a creep. I'm a weirdo.
I started listening to Richard Cheese just for the laughs, but now I just straight up enjoy it. His cover of Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden, for instance, isn't particularly humorous really, it's just a straight up good cover.
Black hole sun, won't you come?
Classical music. Again, a normie take, but I enjoy John Williams, particularly the Star Wars soundtrack. Duel of the Fates is my personal favorite. It is pure hype. But even the less epic ones are good too. They accent the movies well, like the famous Luke sunset scene. Or even the theme that plays when Anakin and Padme are about to be taken into the arena. The music makes these moments powerful. Your snarky comments about the prequel romance aside, we can at the very least agree that the music is good. I can't seem to get away from referencing Star Wars, so I will move on. Electronic music. Again, basic, but I pick Skrillex. This dubstep sound is something I absolutely did not like when it was popular, much like emo music, and being the nu metal kid I was as a teenager, when Korn did that Metal Step album and featured Skrillex, I thought Korn had sold out and hated everything to do with dubstep. However, I think I was too harsh. I've since grown to love that Path of Totality album, to the point that it's now in my top 3 Korn albums. And I've gone back to Skrillex itself with a much more positive outlook. I thought Skrillex sounded kinda dumb back in 2011. As my mother once delicately described it, it sounds like robot farts. But maybe it was ahead of its time. Compared to pretty much all other mainstream music that has occurred since then, Skrillex was rather original and unique. I took tracks like Kill Everybody and Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites for granted. They are so vibrant and full of kinetic energy. Especially compared to the dull, desolate wasteland of boring music that has occurred in the decade afterwards. I also believe Skrillex was the original Zoomer music. It came to prominence during Gen Z's school years, and was pretty much the first music to incorporate samples of internet memes. So yeah, even though I thought of it as a dumb fad at the time, I look back on Skrillex a bit more fondly now.
Yes! Oh my god!
Country music. I used to hate country music, but I think what I really hate is modern country music. I like the older sound much better. I'll take Johnny Cash over some modern country singer rapping about the country classics that they allegedly listen to. A pet peeve of mine, but I really hate when singers mention better music instead of just making good music. I don't want to hear Kid Rock mention Sweet Home Alabama. I'd rather just skip the middleman and straight up listen to Skynyrd. Anyways, I guess I like the older style of country that I think is sometimes referred to as outlaw country.
I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on.
Hell, Even G.G. Allen delved into this style, and the lyrics are pretty savage, but at least it's real country music.
I'll kill you for $1 if it's in the cards today.
But as far as a newer country artist that sounds real, yet is still innovative, Sturgill Simpson is great. Rather experimental, which is a breath of fresh air in country music. It takes influence from a lot of older rock music and blends these elements pretty seamlessly, and the lyrics are a bit deeper than the average country song. I also really like his cover of In Bloom by Nirvana. There's horns blaring and a changed lyric, which adds a new context to the song. Great stuff.
You don't know what it means to love someone. You don't know what it means to love someone.
Folk music. I'm gonna cheat for this one. I pick The Native Howl. I say cheat, not only because it's bluegrass music, so it's just as much country as it is folk, but also because they are sort of metal. They call their style thrash grass, and it's basically acoustic thrash metal with banjos.
Our fire is burning, but we're ever learning. So many wish to snuff it out.
They do occasionally use electric guitars and go into southern metal territory in a few tracks here and there. But for the most part, it's just bluegrass with raspier than usual vocals. Does that count as metal? I suppose it's debatable, but I'm picking them anyways. Fun band, based lyrics, and distinct sound. I hope they keep making music.
Reptilian political figures make a mean saute.
Hip-hop. I really don't care for rap music. If it's rap rock or rap metal, I can tolerate it, but generally speaking, rap just doesn't appeal to me at all. It's just not for me. And I'm sure someone in the comments is gonna say that it's just mainstream rap that's bad, and tell me that I just need to check out all the cool underground rappers. I'll just say that I've attempted to listen to a Death Grips record, and all I have to say is that it's one of the albums of all time. I just don't like rap very much, so my pick for hip-hop might be the whitest thing I could choose, but I'm going with Portishead.
The blackness, the darkness, forever.
Their style is called trip-hop. It has a more mellow, ambient sound. Hip-hop beats. And soothing, clean female vocals.
For whom it is preserved.
With samples that give it a jazzy or R&B type feel. Quite different from my regular listening, but I can vibe with this from time to time. I mostly just like their first record, Dummy. So, that's non-metal music I like. Hope you enjoyed hearing my takes and got some new recommendations. Our acculturation continues.